You want your videos to look amazing, right?
So, welcome, friends. Welcome to another episode of Xtra Bytes. And today we have our most in demand and most sought after landscape photographer, for whom we have been really getting a lot of requests from quite a long time. And our calendar was so full that we were unable to really figure out how do we manage that. But now we decided to really give him, invite him on a slot which is really prime time kind of a thing that we've been always saying. So, and he's none other than our own Desi and Firangi both combined into one, Manish Mamtani. And giving you brief introduction about Manish before even I welcome him officially. Manish, if I talk about myself, I think we are one of the ever since I started foraying into photography and landscape photography, I think I've known him from day one, and we've been interacting. We've been meeting as well whenever he used to visit from US to India, which is his hometown, and I think he's a special friend as well. So more than just a speaker today. So welcome, Manish, and thank you for accepting the invite. And yeah, so let me give you read out to you about Manish. So Manish actually is, when we say award-winning nature photographer, he actually is. And let me be honest that he is probably one of the very few landscape photographers whose work has been regularly featured in Nat Geo, and that is the kind of frequency with which his images have been featured is quite phenomenal. And Nat Geo itself is the premium kind of forum where everybody really strives and desires to get featured there, and he has been a regular um, landscape photographer getting featured there. And he is night, astro, normal landscape, he's aerial, he's in infrared photography, infrared landscape photographer as well. So he hails from Nagpur, India, but now he's a resident of Boston in US. Somewhere around 2010, when he first visited Yosemite National Park, that is when he really fell in love with photography, landscape photography, and ever since then, he has been actually trying to explore the national parks in their best possible way and trying to bring out the natural beauty of these national parks and surrounding areas as well. So welcome, Manish. Welcome to this Extra Bytes, and thank you for accepting the invite. And you'll have to unmute yourself. Um, so
Thank you so much, Jesse. You guys can hear me, right?
yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
We can hear you.
Great. Well, thank you so much for the invite. It's really an honor. What you guys are doing is really great. So, I mean, having this series in this specific time with this COVID going on and bringing all people together, especially photographers and others, and kind of giving a platform for people like us to interact with people who see our work and who admire sometimes and have questions for us. So giving this platform is really great. You're doing a fantastic job, all of you. And hats off to you guys, first of all. And
Yeah, thank you, Manish.
you're welcome. About me, I'll come back to your point. I'm still a Shuddh Desi, completely 100%. Even though I've been living in Boston right now from quite some time, but obviously India is my hometown. And US is a place where I work, which I have made my home right now. So I am divided into two parts right now. Both are home for me. And I plan to keep it that way for a long time right now.
So when you are in US, you say I'm away from home, and when you are in India, you also say I'm away from home.
Exactly.
Good. So, but before we really go ahead, we have the full panel today right now, and that we are lucky today, and we have Himadri joining us from Assam, and then we have Sandeep Mathur, we have Som, we have Atanu from somewhere near you, somewhere there, and trying to explore his own photography. And we have Prakash. We have Prakash from rich Sheikh's country, Dubai. So welcome everybody. Yeah.
So it's all in the world. People are here right now. That's great.
Yeah, it's quite a global panel.
Good to see you guys. Like it's a.
Manish. To start our discussion, we would like to know your initial journey. So you were in Nagpur. So what were you doing in Nagpur, and your childhood, and maybe did you get somehow got hooked onto photography in some way there only, or it actually started in 2010? So just take us there, and what was your thoughts, and how did you start actually?
Definitely. Usually, whenever I talk about myself, I start from 2010 because that's where the journey of me being a photographer and a traveler started. But I never speak about before that to anyone, but definitely it's a good platform. So I'll share what I've been doing, where I grew up. So I'm born and brought up in Nagpur, India. It's a town in central India. I say small town, but when I came to US, I said, no, that's not a small town anymore, because it's like 20 lakh people living there, more than that, 2 million people. So that's not considered a small town in US. I grew up in Nagpur. I did my education from local nearby places where I used to live, very close by. And I did my CA from Nagpur. So I'm a chartered accountant, if people don't know.
So the finance guy getting into photography now.
Yeah, I mean, finance guy, that's also a story behind that. So in my home, my parents both are teacher, both are maths, both were teaching maths basically. And my sister, she is a doctor. She's settled in San Antonio right now. So you see, growing up, I had to look up to them, that these people are like brilliant people. And my sister used to be always top in her class. And for me, it was more like having fun. And somehow I used to be managing around in 80-90%, not like 99%. But that's how I grew up. So I was good, but I was not that great to be on the top list when it comes to academics. When I was doing my 12th, I kind of screwed up. I didn't get good percentages, and I wanted to be an engineer. So growing up in India, there's always an option that you become a doctor, you become an engineer, you become a scientist. Your parents or people around there, they don't give you other options like being a photographer as such. So for me as well, it was, at least at that time. Now people are doing all those stuff. So for me, I wanted to become an engineer, but because of my percentages, I didn't study well, or I roamed around, or I don't want to go into details into that.
You mean to say that chartered accountant, to become a chartered accountant, you don't necessarily have to be a brilliant student?
No, actually, you have to be very, very smart. You have to be bright, definitely, for that as well. But what I was saying is that at that one particular point, which is crucial in your life, I kind of screwed up at that time. So I didn't do well in that time. And then I looked up into my options. I didn't want to spend a lot of money and pay high fee for engineering, doing in private and all those things. So I was looking for options where I could do things on my own. So that's always been the case. And chartered accountancy came into my mind. I was good at maths, so my analytical skills were good. And I remember one of the person, I was talking to them, and he said like, "Oh, you couldn't become an engineer. You cannot become a CA. Forget about it." So I thought, no, I have to. I don't have any other option. So that's how my journey started into chartered accountancy. Very hectic time during that. So because my journey used to be going to the classes, then we had to do articleship course, a training under a chartered accountant, and then going back again to classes. So it started from 6 till 9, almost every day from Monday to Saturday, and Sundays we had some tests. So I don't know when you get time to study that. So that was my life for around 4 years after that, and completed my CA. And at that very point, I basically gave some tests actually, and I got selected as an accountant with the government organization in India, MTNL. So I worked there as an accountant, a gazetted officer in Mumbai for around 3 years. So that's how I moved out of Nagpur, and I got to know the real metro life in Mumbai. So at that time, I was basically not worried about anything. I was making money, I was spending money, I was enjoying my life. And at that point, I decided maybe this is the time to think even bigger and think about getting into IT field. So being an accountant, being from the finance, I thought the best thing that will suit me is to build up systems for people, for finance people. So that's what I started to do. And that's how I slowly worked with IBM, I worked with Wipro, and then I came down to US in 2008. In 2008, when I came down to US, this was a completely different world for me. I still remember coming in the flight. That was my first international flight. And I was like, I'm in a Hollywood movie or something. I don't recognize anyone over here. So it was a completely different experience that I'll never forget. And coming here, looking at how things were preserved, because growing up in India, I had never had an idea that you can preserve something. You can maintain the wilderness of some place, or you can keep it for your generations to see in a way that they can admire the nature and be close to the nature. That's how I loved about coming here, and the national park systems, those were created. So in 2008 till 2010, I was living in the West Coast. I lived in San Diego, I lived in San Jose. But till that time as well, more of my time would going out with friends. We used to go out to Vegas, we used to go clubbing, we used to have a lot of fun. But never photography came into my mind. It's when I left the West Coast actually, and I came down to Plano, Texas. So Plano, Texas is the place where I lived from 2010 to 2014 actually, and almost 4 to 5 years. And that's where I started my job as a consultant with the company, and that allowed me to travel. So I was single, and at the time, instead of coming back to Plano, I decided, let's move out and let's explore what is out there in nature. Because of the national parks, I've heard so much. And my first national park that I visited was in Yosemite National Park. It was in November of 2010. And that's when actually I really saw the light, the beautiful light. The atmosphere was wonderful. It was after the snowstorm, covered with fog, all the yellow sunset light coming through it. And somehow that touched me, or that kind of made me realize that how beautiful nature is. And from there, I kind of started looking up other national parks. And I kind of made it a habit for next 4 to 5 years to live out of a suitcase. So 4 weeks, usually in a month, 4 to 5 weeks. And out of that, 1 week, I'll come back to Plano for 2 days. And I'll do the basic stuff and everything. Otherwise, everything I needed was in my suitcase. So I was going to the client side Monday to Thursday. Thursday night, I will travel down and go to a national park and spend Friday, Saturday, Sunday over there. And then Monday, I'm back to work. So that was my life, like 4 or 5 years. And at that time, it was not more about photography, but it was more about exploring. It was more about to know these places, to find myself, and to find what I'm liking. Because I've had hobbies since childhood, but nothing stuck. So everything I used to do, I used to leave it within a week or two, anything for that sort. So my friends were surprised that you have been doing photography now from 10 years. It's amazing that you're still doing it. But in photography, I've been changing. I started with something, I moved to something else. So I keep changing, but photography for me never changed because that it's kind of a meditation for me. That's a stress buster for me. So after working hard for 4 to 5 days, those were the 2 days I was finding to just relax and just be close to nature. As I said, I didn't think much about the technicalities of photography at that time. I had bought my first DSLR, which was in June of 2010, and that's when in November I did the trip and took some pictures. I didn't know how to use it. I had no idea what to do with aperture, what to do with shutter speed, how these functions work. It was the same way that everyone else starts without knowing what it brings. But as and when you know what this thing can do and how you can capture the beauty you see, I still feel that you cannot exactly capture how you see. You have to kind of create that scene later, but what you see, I try to capture as much as possible through that. That's what my journey has been till 2010. And since 2010, as I told you, I've been traveling. Then in 2014, I moved down to Boston area after my marriage. And I did by traveling for next couple of years. And then I took up a local job here. And since then, I try to find, me and my wife, we tried to find time more than frequently to go out and visit most of our favorite places. One of our favorite places have been Iceland. We've been there 3 to 4 times already. And we plan to go back again once the COVID situation comes back to normal. So since then, this has been my photography that I try to find local places that I live in New England area. Summer and spring is really beautiful here. So that's the best time for you to go out to hike in the nature. Wonderful forests, wonderful trails, beautiful fall colors all across. Night sky is very pristine. Some other places still have that night sky that I probably think that the way our ancestors used to see. So that's what kind of I like over here. Winter is something that I try to get away from here and go to some other places. So that's what my journey has been in photography so far.
That's fantastic. But I have one question coming in mind that in November 2010, you went to Yosemite National Park and you saw beautiful light after snowstorm and all. And but seeing good light, even though you have a camera and you did not start venturing into photography. So when was it then you decided that you have to now start doing photography in per se, and you will have to now pursue it in most utmost seriousness and probably learn it. So when was that kind of awakening happen?
Very good question, actually. So 2011 and 2012, when I was making these trips, I started to share my work in platforms called Facebook with my family and friends. I used to share what I am taking, and they were like surprised to see that this kind of nature exists. So when I actually saw that I can actually bring these things that I'm seeing to people who are not able to travel, who cannot see, that's when I thought it as kind of making it as a serious hobby or a passion and taking pictures, not just recording what I'm seeing that I've been here, but also trying to find out when is the best time to see such kind of light. Because previously, when I used to go out with friends, our timing was a typical one that you go out to travel, you never worry about your sunrises, you get up late. And then whenever you get up, you go out, you don't care about the light. All you need is pictures with friends and just that I visited this place. So all these things I started to learn. It was a slow thing for me. I started to learn when is the best time. I started to learn about different ways of photographing. I started to learn about infrared. I started to learn about astro and the timing. And the learning part is I love really to know the nature that it helped me to understand and know nature better, to appreciate it, is one thing that it has taught me, that I don't take it for granted. I I I really like what efforts people are doing, and I seriously believe in a other term that big companies also realize that and start to work towards that to preserve it for our future generations. So that was a time when I started to share the images. Is basically I started moving more into photography.
Okay, so did you follow somebody in particular or some platform where you could learn and understand composition? But I realized, though you've not mentioned, I realized that you've not gone through to any formal kind of a school of photography, even part time. Also, you've not done that. So you probably learned looking at some people's work and maybe googling and figuring out about different aspects of photography. But was there anybody in particular or any type of work that really pushed you more into photography and which made you learn different aspects of photography? Because infrared photography is a very specialized kind of genre for landscape. Even with landscapers, you don't get to see too many people doing it. Astro, yes, we get to see too many people, but infrared is something very, 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 very rare. Still, it is very rare. At least that is what I understand.
Yeah, these are like specific genres, but I did one county college course when I bought my camera. So when I bought my camera in June 2010, there was a weekend course which said understand your camera, something
Okay.
like that. So that's where I went. I started to understand what the features of camera can basically provide you, and what kind of exposures you can take, what kind of photography you can do through that. So that kind of gave me kind of a way of thinking ahead of what I want to do in that particular area. I stuck with landscape photography for a couple of years. Then I remember I went down to Yosemite and I met a person who's a friend of mine right now. I haven't met him, but online, his name is Imran Aziz, and he was doing kind of star trails and astro, as well as from him I kind of came to know about infrared photography as well. So the technicalities of these things are different than what you see with normal photography. Even at that time, not a lot of people were doing astrophotography. So now it's crazy. Everyone is doing astrophotography these days. But at that time, not very people were doing. So my inspiration not necessarily comes from the great names. It comes from people I know, I interact. Like I met a fellow photographer, so I got inspired from him to do and learn new things. And I get inspired by nature and specific photographs. So if it's a beginner with an excellent photo and or a group of photos, I definitely follow them and talk to them. I learn from them as well. So that's how my journey has been into this. Coming back to the astro part, like growing up, there was not that much of light pollution in India in that particular place. So we used to sleep at the terrace. It was a thing in summers, or sometimes if you want to feel good, you go out and you have a iron bed, something that you can fold and put it at the top of the terrace. That's what we had, or in the front yard or something. So that's where we used to find the constellations and we used to talk about them. So somewhere that was in my mind. And when I read about it coming here, I tried to know it better. And when I was able to see the stars that I've never seen before in the night sky specifically, and specifically Milky Way. So that's what got stuck with me. And I started to do more of this. It's very peaceful for me in the night. It's I'm away from all the what do you call tam jam, or all the stress, everything of the day that you spend. It's quite peaceful. All you hear is sounds of nature. You're near a pond, you hear you hear insects, you hear frog noises and all those things. But even they have kind of I mean, I love that sound as well. Going to the nature, nothing else. It's very peaceful for me. Even while taking the picture, I make sure that I'm relaxing. I'm trying to take in what nature is providing. Infrared photography, as I told you, I got to know it from a friend of mine, and then I looked up into it. I looked up into the wavelength of lights that you can see, the wavelengths beyond what you can see, the infrared spectrum, and different wavelengths and how you can capture different colors from more visible light to less infrared, which is bright in colors, to basically pure infrared kind of thing, or which is more like black and white infrared photography. That's what I learned, and I decided I'll buy a camera. I remember I bought a Canon T2i camera, and I sent it for upgrade to a full spectrum. So both the things at that point were in my mind, Astro and infrared. That's the reason I sent it out for full spectrum, to basically allow the camera to capture the whole spectrum of light. And then I use filters on top of the lenses to limit the spectrum, limit the wavelength that I wanted to capture for a specific effect. When I show the slides, I will have certain pictures of infrared as well today, that I may talk more about which filter I use there and what is the reason of doing that.
Fantastic. So we will not really ask you further questions right now, because we all are getting eager to get into dig into your images. So just take us through that, your set of images that you want us to show.
Okay, sure. Yeah. Let me try and share it.
Yeah.
Let me know when you can see my screen.
Yeah, we can.
So this is one of the first images. When I talk about November 2010, I saw the light, I got struck. This was one of the first images that I took during that trip, and I still love it. The way the light was flowing, the way the fog was there, and these rays that you can see through this tree. May not be a perfect image, but at that particular point, it really, that overall atmosphere really touched me. And I could pick this image to show how beautiful it was looking at that particular moment, with snow all across. I took this image from side of the road. I didn't hike, I didn't do anything, but everything over there after the snow was really beautiful. So this is kind of the first image I would say that I shared on a platform. This is my starting point to share that, okay, I take pictures, and my journey into photography started from this very image. I believe it was a couple of days into our trip. I went out with a couple of friends of mine from work at that point. And then basically I also somehow made them kind of more into nature at that particular point. They also, I know that they started doing a lot of trips after that and looking to nature a little differently than we saw. So this is that one picture. Let me go ahead. So Yosemite is always close to my heart. Even though this was one of the first national parks I visited, I have visited it multiple times. Recently, it's been a few years I haven't been there, but when I was doing consulting, I used to visit it at least a couple of times in a year. So at a stretch of 3 to 4 years. And there are various spots where you can see how majestic the overall park looks like. You have these granite mountains, half dome, and then you have the valley where if you go in the morning, this is a view from a place called Tunnel View. There are millions and millions and millions of photographs taken from this place at that particular point. Everyone goes there. And I've been there many times, but these were some of the good conditions that I saw in the morning, that the fog had rolled in and it kind of formed a river of fog. I did a time lapse here. At that time, I didn't know much about time lapse. So I tried to do a time lapse in the evening with the fog, in the night where fog was moving around as well. So this particular image I share on the landscape side. I have taken up a lot of images from Yosemite, even though I have visited a lot of national parks, probably visited 20 to 30 national parks, and most of them twice in the US. Was very close to National Park Foundation. I was sharing my images with them. I was helping them out with the donation stuff. A lot of my images were on the calendars, the newsletters, and all those, and kind of did some programs with them as well during early days when I was very close to, when I was visiting more and more of national parks. So this particular image is where I like it because of the flow of the fog. Kind of takes you through the image to the end, and the misty feeling overall in this particular image is what I always keep it and put it as my desktop background as well, to see how amazing.
Yeah, this is a lot of, yeah, it's really beautiful.
Thanks. So I'll come to this image of mine. This again is from Yosemite National Park. This is a river that is flowing, and basically it's in the valley when you're going out of Yosemite, and I had no idea. I had no idea at that time that it was a full moon night. So I remember this was kind of a family trip for me. I went out with my sister and my brother-in-law. We did a trip to go out, do the Route 1 in the California side, and then go out to Yosemite at the end. Couple of days, it was all cloudy and it was snowing. It was bad conditions. So for them, Yosemite was supposed to be. Sorry.
So which month was it, Manish? Was it? I can see snow and there. And which month was it when you took when you said that you were out traveling?
This was close to Christmas time. So
Christmas time. Oh.
Yeah, this is in December. I think around 23rd, 24th December or 26th. I don't remember the exact date, but it's around that time.
All right. Perfect. That's all right. Yeah.
Yeah. So kind of presented a perfect condition when I was here. I had lost hopes. I thought I would not get any pictures during that time. And I had lost hopes. I was ready to go back. And I was just scrolling over here because there was a coyote moving around. And I thought, let's take coyote's picture. And that's what I was trying to do here. And suddenly I saw the moon rising from there in between fog. First of all, I thought there is a big car coming from there. It's a headlight. What is going on over there? I had no idea that it's a moon. It was a surreal atmosphere, a surreal situation for me. I even asked the couple of photographers taking pictures, is it moon? Is it moon? They were like, yes, you dumb, this is moon. I was so excited that at that very point, I was like, wow, I couldn't believe my eyes. So I took out my camera. Couldn't figure out at that very point what to do with it because it was so much to take in. I was so excited to see this. So I did my best to take the pictures at that time. It's been 8 years since I've taken this picture, but this overall experience still comes to my mind, and I see, wow, this was still one of the best moon rises I've seen ever.
Yeah, so I remember, if I remember it right, this image was also published in Nat Geo.
Yeah, this has been published. I was about to ask a question about this image as well.
Yeah.
So, Jasiji, please go ahead. Then.
No, so I just wanted to reconfirm because I remember having seen this image earlier, and I think it was published in Nat Geo.
Yeah, it was published in Nat Geo in the section called Nature in Black and White, and even one of my images got published back then.
Wow.
It was of an owl. So that is when I came to know about Manish Mamtani actually. Before that, I had no idea about him. So sorry, Manish bhai. But but
Now you know me, right?
no, I have known you ever since. But then I didn't have the courage to come up to you and like send you a friend request or something like that. But then we were on the same page that day. It was sometime in June, if I remember correctly, June 2014.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I had also applied for that assignment. So could you tell us more about your National Geographic journey whenever you can?
Yeah,
take us
I
through
would talk about this picture.
Yeah.
This the one that you're talking about is a story in black and white. One of the top photographers who specializes in black and white had that story going on. For that, I was really lucky that he really liked this image. He commented on it, and he basically made it a cover photo of that particular story. So the story starts with that. And it has also been published in a couple of National Geographic books. So
it was in the Your Shot, the National Geographic book, Getting Your
yeah,
Shot.
that is one, and there is another one as well, National Geographic book, that they basically published this image as well. So started from that particular story. That story I submitted this image to, and at that very point when I took this image, I didn't really think that I should be submitting any of these images. So I submitted this image around 2 to 3 years after taking that particular image. That's when I submitted it there. And I really, I was stoked to see that a National Geographic editor has put it in the story. And kind of, I started to put more images on the Your Shot platform. It used to be a very good platform for photographers to basically connect and get to know the thought process of the Net Geo editors. They used to have live sessions. They used to have these stories where they would give explanations about why they have selected certain images. They would go well beyond parts of just liking the image, but they would have these one-on-one sessions here as well in US, meetups kind of thing, where you can go and you can talk to the Net Geo editors and try to know what their journey has been, what thought process is there in their mind when they select images for their books and for the publications. So my interaction with Net Geo basically started with Your Shot. That's what gave me kind of a platform to showcase my work. And then luckily, they liked my work. And from there, I've had a lot of more than 10 story publications. I don't remember the exact name. And now the website is not there anymore. It has been taken down. It's very unfortunate.
It was taken down last year. So
yeah, it was really unfortunate. One of the corporate mergers that the new company didn't think that that division of National Geographic was profitable enough for them. So they took it down. There were protests by photographers, but then nothing happened. Corporate world is they have to make money, and that's what they do. So that's from there my interaction started with Geo. Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Manish, I just want to know about the approach, the technical approach for this shot. Is this staged, composite, or could you tell us in terms of the methods that you've applied and also the on-field story of the image?
So on-field, when I reached there, when I saw this moon rising, right, I couldn't really basically believe it that I had to take this picture. At the time, I was still learning on taking the photographs, so I was not technically savvy at that particular point. But what I did was I kind of basically pointed my camera towards the fog, towards the light, and I thought, let's try this out, that how this thing comes out, because I'm shooting towards it, and there's a lot of mist in this place. On the foreground element side, if I had to change something, I wouldn't have these small ice things on the left side. I will compose it a little different. But at that point, the level of excitement I was in, I didn't pay attention to this. I just wanted to capture this. I I didn't think at that very point that I would convert into black and white. However, it always goes in my mind that the images that where in this case there was light, was bright light, but it was dull overall in the color sense because it was the late blue hour that the moon started to rise. It was difficult to capture the details in the other part, so I decided, let's capture the major bright areas, and if I'm able to capture that, that would be my target while doing it. When I brought this camera back, this image back, I kind of took few images. The moon, when the moon was a little low, so there was not much of fog interaction, or there was not much that of fog, or light was not scattering enough. So I put it into color. That image, I'm not sharing it today, but it's there, probably there on my website as well. And then this one where there was light scattering and creating a lot of atmosphere, I decided to try it out in the black and white side and see how it basically looks. I wasn't very sure when I was processing, because this image is processed like 7 years back. I would process it a little different today, but I haven't touched it because this brings back the memories that I had with that particular image and the story built up with that, sharing with Nat Geo and they featuring it the way it is. So I never thought that I'll basically touch it or change it. I'll just keep it the way it is. So that is the reason I haven't basically reprocessed any part of it as such. But still, it does a good job to bring the overall image, the overall scene in front of me the way I saw it. Cameras don't have that dynamic range that our eyes have, so we see much more details than what we're able to capture. And that's what I was trying to achieve when I was processing, that at least I'm able to achieve that drama, that atmosphere, the mistiness, and kind of an eerie look as well, that I was basically getting it when I was seeing this particular scene.
Is it a single exposure?
It is.
Okay. How long?
It is about 25 to 30 seconds long.
Okay. Now, I have very interesting thought in my mind that now let us say you have to go there today again and you get to see the similar, you want to shoot this similar scene. How would you make it different? How would you, in what sense will you make it look different, and what will be your approach? Will it be different than the previous time? And would you look for composite or something like that? So what will be your approach now if you have to shoot this again?
So I think I shot this with 70, if I'm not wrong. And now the cameras do provide some great dynamic range, basically. So at that time, those cameras were not that great. They had poor low light performance. I had to take care of the noise part as well. Now I could shoot at longer exposure. I'll probably shoot it differently for the foreground than I'm shooting for the sky in this particular image. I would compose it a little differently, that I have some, the eye that kind of takes you from the foreground to the middle ground to the background and kind of create a visual effect, try to create a visual effect in a way that was a little different. I think I fairly did an okay job with this at that point without knowing what I was doing a lot and just trying to capture what I was seeing at that particular time. But definitely I'll consider these elements because this is one of the places which is again shot millions of times. And there are multiple pictures over here. But when I posted this picture, when I took this picture, I had no idea about the moonrise part. So I haven't seen anything of that sort in the moonrise, in the black and white at that particular place. So it kind of, I used to follow Ansel Adams in Yosemite National Park. And I was talking to one of the editors of Nat Geo and him mentioning that this image reminds him of his work. That was a big, kind of a big boost for me to at that very point that, oh, I just took an image without knowing so much, and then it reminds him. So sometimes it's just more like nature that you have to or you should capture, more worry about technical things later. That's what happened with this image. Maybe if I take today with all those technical elements, it kind of becomes the image that you're very used to seeing rather than different and doesn't get that much. So that's the reason I didn't change it a lot in that particular sense and kept it the way it was. The longer exposure, I think, helped. Around 30 seconds, it helped me. Kept the ISO low. So my f-stop was also low at that particular point. I think it was f4 or f2.8, I don't remember right now. But that's what created the atmosphere, the moving water in the river with the light scattering around on these small rocks covered with the snow was something that I was just able to achieve what I was seeing at that particular moment. Nature for me is not always perfect. I see a lot of images which are more than perfect than what you see. See a lot of images that have perfect light, perfect conditions, perfect everything. And but nature not always is perfect. A lot of photographers have approach of their artistic, of creative nature, where they try to bend the light and create and show what they think it should be. It's a very good thing. It is an artistic view as well. But if you capture the way it is, sometimes the light falls at some particular place that you don't want. Sometimes it doesn't fall at some particular place that you want. So you have this artistic liberty in post-processing to change all those things. But for this image, I didn't do any of those things. I just kept it the way it was captured, or the way I was able to see it.
Fantastic. Thank you, Manish, for that wonderful answer.
Thank you. If no further questions, I'll move ahead a little.
Yeah.
So this image is also special to me. This was in 2011. It was in June 2011. So I usually, during the time, I used to do something during my birthday or something of sort. Like the previous year, I bought myself a digital camera. This year, I thought, let's do a trip in the Southwest. So I wasn't following any specific photographers. I wasn't following anything. I had known about these places, the national parks Southwest has to offer. So I decided to do the Grand Circle tour on my own. So at the time, solo tours were not that common. A lot of friends were telling me, "What are you doing? Why are you going alone? You don't need anyone. I'll join you," and all those things. So, but I decided to do that trip alone. It's a 10-11-day trip, wherein I did all the national parks. I did Arches, Canyons Land. I did Bryce National Park. I did Zion. Then I went to Monument Valley, as well as Page, Arizona, and basically ended at Grand Canyon. Initial plan was to end at Vegas, but then I wanted it very nature specific. And this particular day was the day of my birthday, actually. And I was in Monument Valley during that trip. And I saw there was a storm moving in. I was like, okay, let's wait it out and see when it clears if I get something. But I realized that when the storm is approaching and when you're in the storm, you get some of the best atmosphere, one of the best looking light or the drama in the images. So there is View Hotel in Monument Valley. This is the only hotel over there which is maintained by the native over there, native people. And it's a viewpoint from the hotel lobby, basically from outside the lobby. They have the viewing area, and that's the viewpoint you see from that hotel. And each and every room over there have the same view. So they've made the hotel in such a way that when you go there, even if you're in your room, your balcony, you see the same particular view. So that is amazing about that particular hotel. And I was staying there during that night. So I saw a sandstorm for the first time when I was there. So the whole scene became orange. The sand scattered, it went away, and then there was a thunderstorm. Uh, this is one of the images of that thunderstorm, and the light was coming in through some clouds, and it was pretty dark, and with some headlights, spotlights on some of these mittens. I have another image where the center mitten has a spotlight with a rainbow above it. And after that, it cleared, and I saw the night. In 2011, I didn't know much about night photography, but I still thought, let's try it out. I tried it out with my 70. I look at that images and I just move away from them these days. So, but that was my first Milky Way shot with the trails in the stars and everything wrong that you can do with the Milky Way stars. But the overall experience of seeing those places is kind of what makes me today what I am. The journey that has been from visiting these places in early time when I came to US, and the experiences I took from there, they remain with me. So coming to Iceland. So we have been to Iceland around me and my wife, we have been there 3 times. I've been there 4 times. I've done one more trip. I'll come to that trip later. But this was a trip that we did in winter time, and whatnot. In winter time, you're going and you're not seeing the ice caves. It's not done. So we decided to do the hike of the ice caves. So either you can do some tours, the guided tours from there, or you can have your own experience, have a guide to yourself. So we thought we'll have it at our own pace. We'll have a guide to ourselves. It's a little expensive if you're not going in a big group, but it was just both of us, because we had to hike a lot, and we had to hike a couple of hours on the glacier as well to go to the other side of the glacier, Jökulsárlón Glacier. And where the glacier meets the lake, that's where the caves are formed, most of the cases. So we went in there. It was quite some experience doing that hike, because at some point it all became very windy, and we had to just hold on to whatever we had during that night, because if you slip from there, you're going down, and if there's a crack in the glacier, you're going down the glacier. So it was crazy experience for us at that particular point. Doing it for the first time, hiking on the glacier they have all the equipment they give you. They are very thorough. They know their stuff. So you are in the safe hands, but still you're doing it for the first time. You have these worries that what if not? And that's what we had. And we went in there. We spent about 2-3 hours in 2 of the caves there. And this is something that I had never seen before. Being inside an ice cave, seeing the water frozen, which is probably millions of years old over there, and the land that it is creating has been hidden from millions of years. So it's, even they find something new, some trees, something. So it gives kind of a history of of that particular place, that what might have happened. While exploring the place, I saw this very small place inside, and I thought, let's try from there and see how things look like. I couldn't take, basically, I couldn't go in there. It was really difficult to take my tripod and take that shot, but it was needed for this, because there is less light inside this, and you probably need some longer exposures in the ice caves to bring out the light that is coming in. So this cave had some openings. It had an opening on the top. It had opening on the front when you're coming in. So the light at some particular angle, when the daytime is very low and during the winter time, so you have limited time. The sun is low, so you get some beautiful light inside the caves as well. And that's what I wanted to show. This is my wife standing there exploring the ice caves. And then I went down there and took this picture. She didn't know about this. And then I basically showed her the picture and then asked her to kind of model for me and stay there so that I can take a picture without her moving from there. So that this experience remains special for us and basically for both of us. And that's why these images remain special to me as well.
This is awesome. This is awesome. So, yeah.
Thanks. So again, Iceland. Iceland can be notoriously give you bad weather and can also give you fantastic weather. So that's a specialty. When you say that you don't like the weather in Iceland, just wait out for half an hour, and you get some amazing weather that you have not seen before. I've been lucky that I was able to see some beautiful light. This is again a place which is photographed quite a lot. So this is in Wick, and during the summertime, especially, you have wildflower lupins that bloom in there. And you also have the midnight sun kind of thing during that particular time. If you go at around June 21, we go a little later than earlier, late in June, earlier in July. So you get some twilight as well, some beautiful light if you are lucky in that particular place. So two of our trips, they have been during the summertime, and we love the lupins. The whole area is covered with these wildflowers. Amazingly, I mean, I'm surprised that one country can offer you so much. It can offer you volcanoes, it can offer you wildflowers, it can offer you lush greens, it can offer you black sand beaches, great mountains, some amazing glaciers. What else do you need? So that has been one of my favorite places to go since I first visited Iceland almost 3 years back or so.
So you've gone into, can you go back? Did you do focus stacking here, or it was a straight shot?
I tried to do focus stalking, not shopping, obviously. So I had like few pictures in there, but I couldn't use all of them because there was a movement. These were getting a little shaky. So I used 2 images, yes, to create this one for the foreground and one for the middle ground and background. But not a lot of images to stack it. If I had still part, I would have used much more images during that time. But the light changes fairly quickly as well over there. I just wanted to capture the beauty that was coming in, and then I processed this image quite later. Somehow there are a lot of images that I take, I enjoy, keep, I forget about them. And then sometime later when I'm going through that, oh my God, this is what I captured here. And this is a good image, I should reprocess it or process it. That's when I process this. This is from last year, but I recently processed it this year during the COVID times. So now, before I go to Astro part, are there any questions for me?
Anybody from panel? Do you have any questions?
I'm good. I'm just waiting for the infrared part.
Yeah, I'm ready to see the Astros. Let's see them.
So this is one of the images that this is my first panorama in astrophotography. Again, this was taken back in 2012 in Joshua Tree National Park. So Joshua Tree National Park is on the corner of California. And at the time, I went on my own to do this trip, and I had no idea about this. I thought I'll go out in the night. After taking sunset pictures, I went back to have some dinner, and then I'll come back later and take some night photos. I had no idea about, I'm a little scared of the snakes, especially rattlesnakes. So I had no idea about this place. And basically it's a desert. The sand here, there's so many rodents that they have eaten away the sand, the mud part of it. When you step on that, you kind of, it's soft. It kind of sometimes goes down in the hole as well, sometimes over there. And there was some weird noises coming during the night of rodents. And when there are rodents out there, mice, that's when the snake come out to eat them as well, because it's summertime. It's very hot during the day, and that's a time in the night that they usually come out. So I've had some experience with the rattlesnakes at some other places, fortunately not here, but I was scared to hell while taking this picture. Just wanted to complete this picture as soon as possible. I didn't do a longer exposure, but while taking a panorama in this particular place, I kind of light painted the tree from the side to so that I'm not, when I'm taking a center frame, I'm on the right side, that I'm not in the frame, but I'm quickly light painting it. I did it from a couple of other places. And the final one that I put together, I kind of like that there's a light coming from the right side in this case, and basically creating a 3-dimension for this particular image. And I feel that the shape of the Joshua tree kind of echoes the shape of the universe, the galaxy on top of it. So that's why I kind of call it like a wisdom tree, where basically the world we live in and the galaxy, the world, the outside world, kind of meets and have a connection between them. The yellow side you see on both the sides is the light pollution from 2 towns on that particular area. It's as it is a panorama, it covers quite, I think 120, 140 to 150 degrees probably, because the Milky Way is a little low in horizon at that particular point. So this was my first panorama. I didn't have much of the idea, but I wanted to capture it during that time. Today I take my Astro where I'm doing a longer exposure for foregrounds. I make sure that my foregrounds have some details that you can view that. During that time, for me, completing that shot was a big achievement with the fear I had during that time of staying there. Slowly it went away. I ventured more into more deserts and took more pictures, was more careful, was trying to wear big boots as well when I'm going to these deserts, so that if there is even a snake or something, or that I am safe at least, and can be saved at a later time as well. So this is one of the images that was published in 3 of the National Geographic books. They have a learning course where they have put it. It has been published at many other places. So it appears like my first images, whatever I do, are currently getting published. So I should take something different every time for the first time.
So Manish, is this a single row panorama? Can you just tell us a little bit about this image?
So there's 7 vertical images that I took, and I created this panorama in that way. There was a lot of space that I didn't use from that particular panorama, but I took 7 pictures. And now my workflow, my planning and everything has changed when it comes to astrophotography. But at that time, I was not worrying about these rules that you get some trails or you don't get the trails. It doesn't appear because it's a big image.
That's a lot of megapixels.
A lot of megapixels, but when you look closely, there might be some trails in the stars here.
There are some. If we look at the extreme left-hand side corner, top corner, that is where slight hint is there.
Yeah. So now what I do is I use these apps. I use the NPF rule. I used to do 500 rule. I made up with 400 rule. Then I created my own rule, just reducing it by half or so of the 500 rule, and kind of it matches with what the NPF also says. So I kind of take pictures in that particular way now.
Manish, one question. The shadow details on this image, have you intentionally made this more like a silhouette, or the camera didn't capture the shadow details during the shot?
Not much of the details, and the camera at that time which I was using was not having great noise performance as well. If I'm going to take pictures today, I do long exposures. I'll come to those images where you will be able to see the foreground. Sometimes I light paint, but that is also a subtle light that I use. And most of the times these days, I'm using longer exposures so that you have the foreground element as well. This was, I still have details in it. I can pull out the shadow details, but I basically kept it to have my focus on this particular tree as if the light is shining from the galaxy and there is a connection that is happening, which I kind of didn't like when I was putting in more details in there in that particular part. So that was a decision that I made considering the quality today. I can definitely bring out the details. I have it low noise performance with so much technology improvement, so much of new innovations, and so much of different post-processing skills that were there during that time of how to achieve the astrophotography. But every point for me, what I try to show is the starting point, and then I go towards what I've been doing later. I have pictures on the astro, same thing I do on the infrared and basically aerial side. So I've divided this presentation into 4 parts. We covered the landscape part of it a little bit, and then now the astro part starts for me.
Okay.
Any questions on this?
Maybe on the next few images.
Oh.
So this is again my first star trail image as such. So this was captured in Texas. I lived for quite some time in Texas, and the 1 week that most probably I was, one weekend I was spending in Plano, I kind of looked up a few people who were interested in doing astrophotography so we can go out to some dark night sky places. Plano, Dallas, it's extremely light polluted. You cannot see much of the stars there. At least you have to drive 2 hours, 3 hours to see some stars. And this was one of the chapel I basically wanted to capture there with a wide angle star trail image. At that time, I called it a time traveler because this kind of displayed the Earth's rotation, the capturing of the Earth's rotation in the form of star trails. And I believe this image was taken for at least 3 hours, which I put together with some difficulty at that very point. But again, beautiful night sky to get. There was light pollution below, so you don't see a lot of stars near the horizon. That edge doesn't touch the horizon part and fades away because of the light pollution. That's where you lose out the stars. But there are some dark places where basically you can see the stars right above the horizon as well.
So any particular method that you use to reduce the noise?
This one were multiple short exposures.
Yeah.
And I was making sure that I don't get a lot of noise in that. I did some photos where I used to take 15-second exposure for star trails and then club 4 15-minute exposures. Then I stopped doing it because that would spoil your camera and you'll have a lot of noise and you don't get an idea of what you're getting till 15 minutes. Because it's pretty dark. So for me, it's important that even if there's one frame in the star trail that is messed up, I can basically work around because I have multiple frames, and there are apps right now which will probably take away that gap within the star trail, even if you have one frame that is messed up and made the complete star trail for you. There used to be an app called startrails.exe. I used to use that with Windows. that's what I use to put these together, multiple exposures or multiple shots together to create the star trail.
All right, all right.
So this place is in Colorado. It's near Aspen. There's a city called Aspens, and these mountains are maroon belts, if I'm not wrong. And basically, I've been to this place for multiple times, but I've taken fall pictures, I've taken summer pictures with lush greens, but I've never never got a chance to take night photos. A couple of times I thought of taking, but again, the weather was not right, so I had to go back. But this time, it was a perfect weather for me. It was like a mirror with no wind. So when you're doing a reflection shots with the night sky, even if there is 2-3 miles wind, you're not going to get anything. It's really difficult. And it was calm. It was 0-mile wind, fortunately, during that time. And I was standing here taking this picture. At that point, as it is fall, you see the Milky Way is on the right side to align with the mountains. The core is already gone behind the mountains. But during the earlier months, it doesn't align that well with these mountains. So this was the specific time with the fall colors, with the reflection, with basically no wind and some air glow as well in the sky that I was able to capture through this one. So what I did is I took longer exposure for the foreground to capture, to show that there is basically foliage that is peaking, and as well as shorter exposure for the sky to capture the details in the stars, to put them together without any light painting, but both the exposures taken at the same time. I like to take my exposures at the same time when I'm doing night photography. I don't do blue hour photos and then come back and take the Milky Way photos. I have so many Milky Way photos right now that I all have to do is take blue hour photos and then put the Milky Way on top of it. For me, this experience of spending time there is really important. I spend a lot of time taking night photos. That's the time I think about things that are going on in life. I try to relax. So lot goes on for me when I'm taking the night photos. It's just not night photography for me. So I take my time, I take long exposures, I take short exposures, and then I try to show basically what I was able to see, because sometimes even if with no moon, there is starlight. So your eyes get accustomed after 15-20 minutes, and you can actually see the stars. You can see the landscape as well. When you go in from your car, you cannot see anything. You're like, what do I do? So just relax, take some time over there, take things in, how things look. Slowly you start to see things because your eyes adjust to that particular darkness. And that's where I try to compose my shots to see what I want to achieve in those shots. And that's why it's important for me when I go to a place sometime before I plan to take the shot, so that I get used to that darkness.
This is beautiful.
So this is a state park in Utah. It's called Gablin Valley State Park. And again, I spent the whole night at this place on my own. Fortunately, I didn't have anyone else at that time.
Fortunately.
Yeah. So yeah. So these days, if you go, it's really difficult to get that there are not people around. So I used various apps for astrophotography. Started using it basically 3-4 years back, or maybe a little before that, to try to find out exactly where the Milky Way will be at a particular spot, where so that I can plan those shots. I see when is the astronomical twilight ending, and basically I shoot from the time astronomical twilight ends. You can start from astronomical twilight. Definitely, you get some details as well. There's still some light, but most of my shooting starts from the time real night starts after the astronomical twilight and just before the astronomical twilight starts. I try to shoot most of the times when there is no moon, or if the moon is around 15-20% or so. That's usually the time that I could see much details in the Milky Way. And you see in this image, you can still see the stars near the horizon. There is no light pollution whatsoever. So these are the pure dark night sky places where you don't see any glow of any city. There are hundreds of miles from this place over here. There might not be any light coming in, basically unnecessarily going into the sky. That's what I promote as well. People to understand that even if they're using lightings, try to point towards the ground, not point towards Earth. And there are a lot of businesses in the cities that keep the lights on during the night, and they don't turn off the lights. There might be reasons, there might be security reasons, there might be other reasons. But what it does, if not done efficiently, all that light goes away, goes out in the sky. If there are clouds, these lights are scattered through that. You see yellow clouds, you see light glowing around, and you don't see any of the stars. I prefer places where you can see the stars in detail. Like our ancestor probably saw it, right, with no such light pollution around that time. So I call the night sky sacred, and that is one of the reasons, because of places like these where you from the naked eye, you see these twinkling stars, you see the stardust, you see the starlight. Just amazes me that we are so tiny in this galaxy. Our planet itself is so tiny in this galaxy, and we are among billions of people in this planet. So where do we exist in this? And still we are able to see, we are able to capture this. It's amazing. The feeling itself is just enormous that we are so tiny when it compares to the whole galaxy. I kind of use two lights here, two light panels. One with both with very low intensity, but one with a slight more intensity on the left side to basically light these two rocks, you can say. And there was one light panel behind these to light the light on the back side, so that there is definitely a light difference between the front light and the back light, and it doesn't look flat. And that's what I was trying to achieve from this particular image. I use a third light as well when I look into it, a small lantern or something, which is lighting these rocks from behind as well. So you see the orange glow in there. And I took around 8 images. I think this was shot with 24 mm, Rokinon 24 mm. And I took around 8 images at very high ISO, so that I can stack them together and basically reduce the noise and get the details of the Milky Way. Again, I was using light painting for this, and as it was properly lit, I didn't have to take separate exposures for the foreground. When I was stacking, it also reduces the light from the foreground. It takes away some details, which you can definitely bring back in post. And most of the times, night sky images, they don't look good with a lot of detail in the foreground. It's usually softness that kind of adds to the overall scene, as if you are watching it when you're there.
This is very interesting. Any astro experts can ask the questions, because. But if you're, let's say, if you're there now, you say that there's a lot of people now, photographers now, these days, if you go. Am I right?
Yeah, there are a lot of people now with these places because they have become quite famous, and a lot of people are doing workshops here. Uh, Found workshops in Arches National Park, Delicate Arch, where a whole bunch of people were there, and I had to come back because they were not willing to move 10 to 12 people, and doing the light painting and not worrying about other people as well. This is very personal to me, this night sky experience. So I try to basically go there with a friend of mine, or sometimes on my own, but not with a whole lot of people, because I try to take in what it has to offer during that time. It's getting away from all the stress of the day, of the work, and just relaxing. This is my relaxation time for me, if you ask me. So but now, yes, that's the reason I didn't take a lot of photos from past 2 years, and I moved more and more into aerial photography. Was one of the reasons that there were many people taking these pictures during the night. With this COVID situation from June, I started taking pictures after 1.5 years, probably. I took the astrophoto, and I made some trips because I can again find those places all to myself and enjoy, just be part of the nature without really disturbing it at that point.
How long ago this was taken?
I think this was in 2016, if I'm not wrong, 2016. Yeah.
So were you using any tracker that time or not?
No, I still don't use, I have a tracker, but I don't use it for my images. I prefer to take very short exposures and with higher ISO. And then I put them together, 6 to 8 to 10 images, depending on basically how many images I can take without any disturbance in between.
Okay.
In any particular reasons why you don't use the tracker?
No specific reasons, actually. I started using it. I found it like too much work in the night sky. When I'm going there, I have to light it out for quite some time to set it up. And most of the places if I'm going there, I'm settled down. And there are a lot of photographers. I don't want to create the light. That's where there's a code between the night photographers. If there is other people shooting around you, you should always ask them that, is it okay that I turn on the lights? Is it before turning on the lights, because they might be taking pictures that might get spoiled. So I try to avoid that kind of, and that is the reason. But recently in this recent trips, I did track the images. The details you get from the tracker are much more than what you get without the tracking. The only issue is that with the tracker moving, because you set your alignment with the North Pole Polaris, and then when the tracker is moving, your foreground is also moving with that. So you get a blurry foreground, and then you take different shots for your foreground, and which I do anyways, and without the tracker on, make sure, and then you take the shots for the sky with the tracker on, and then you try to put them together. That's what a lot of people do in the tracking part. For me, I use Landscape Stacker, that particular app. So it really does a nice job of selecting the sky and distinguishing between the sky and the foreground, and the way you get those details, and it's very easy to put them together in post-processing as well. The difficulty comes when you are working with a tree line. That's where it really gets difficult. Otherwise, other images, it's pretty fair.
And have you come across any nuisance creating people, like, because we always do, sometimes or the other, who will not be bothered about you, or who will not respect your presence, or who will try to get into a fight with you?
Yeah, there are always such people, but I tend to forget about that, and it's just not remember them a lot or give them a lot of importance at that particular point, because I cannot do a lot about a lot of things of how people are behaving. What I can do is at least have my own behavior in a way that I don't disturb other photographers. That's what I care about. But yeah, every place in India, in here, you'll find people who are not so nice to you, who don't care about you, and they only want to do their own stuff. I had a recent experience with, probably I'll share with one of my other photos, that how I had to improvise during that time. But there are such people as well.
Yeah, even Atanu experienced something during one of the sessions with Arpan. He had mentioned. So yeah, we all have such kind of experiences.
Yeah, what I like about the national parks is that I feel that like-minded people go there, used to go there, but there are places which I shoot which are around the city as well, at the edge, at the coastal area. So the light pollution is there, but when you're looking at the sky on the southeast side, there will not be light pollution because you're looking towards the ocean. So there are people, I'm more bothered about them than at the national parks, because there will be one-off people always, you'll find it even during the daytime or during the nighttime, who just want to have their own way, who are not willing to adjust, or probably will not adjust for you.
I think these kinds of people exist everywhere, because I have also experienced similar, have had similar experiences in Iceland as well and Ladakh as well. I think the best way is to really be on your own and figure out your own other compositions, and just leave that spot instead of getting into any argument and really ruining your own party, basically.
Yeah, that's true. Sometimes all you have to do is come back, because you cannot even take a picture from there. It spoils everything that you had planned. But nothing much you can do about it. It's it's not meaningful to get into argument, because they are not going to listen to you. They will not change their mindset.
Yeah. They will not.
Yeah. So this is one of the shots which I took in a place called Sugar Hill, New Hampshire. This place is about 2 hours, 15 minutes from my home. And early month of June, you see lupins growing around this place like crazy. So it's so crazy that they have created a lupin festival. And there is, it's kind of a fair that goes on for a couple of weeks there, where people gather, they meet, they have a good talk, good beer, and they explore the area. So I usually visit that place. I've been there to that fair as well, but usually I visit that place because it offers great night skies, and it offers very good foreground objects as well for you. So it offers you lupins, this chapel. This image is close to me, and I call it's where science meets the nature, or you can see the God, basically, because Star Trail for me is science. Earth is round, it is rotating. And there are some other beliefs which say that, no, I don't want to go into that, but this is where in my image, I feel that they are actually coexisting and meeting. I used light painting for this image to light paint the lupins, because if I am not going, as I don't go in the twilight zone and take pictures and then come back again and try to merge them, I try to take all what I have got for the night shot at the same time. So I tried to light paint the foreground. There was a light near the chapel which was creating the middle ground light and lighting the chapel. And then I used my Astro modified camera here to capture the details in the Milky Way to align kind of before this chapel. So this was a shot that I was trying from a couple of years but not getting it. But a couple of years, 2 years back, I took this image, and after that I haven't visited this particular spot because I got this image. I don't want to go in and try the same shot again. But this is a very beautiful place out there with the lupins. It has become very famous for night photographers now. again, with COVID, I still went out there this year as well. The good part about this is that one side you have these lupins, other side you have the fields where you have fireflies. So around after twilight till around midnight, they are very active. It's a mating season going on right now, and the whole fields are filled with that. So I tried to take a photo for that, but I didn't have good foreground, so I didn't share it. But it's amazing experience to just watch the fireflies in groups over there, just doing what they do and lighting up the whole place. Overall, one thing I am specifically careful when I go there, because these lupins, right? If you go in there, there are ticks, and those ticks can be deadly. They can cause you fever. They can cause you all of the things that you don't want. So you have to be very careful. You have to treat your clothes specifically with some substance that you get in the market for the clothes, as well as there are some moisturizers or insect repellents or tick repellent that you can apply on your body as well. And it is really important to do that while you're going there. I kind of, denim is kind of a thing that attracts ticks. So I kind of have a different kind of clothing, and I treat it like this, and I kind of put a lace on my pants as well, so that there's no gap from my shoe part that the tick can basically go into my body through anyway.
Okay, so these ticks are there only in this place or wherever the lutins are?
Mostly summertime you get wherever you're going in the grass field or these trees, you have these ticks, but they are more active here. They're
Okay.
You definitely get it. Because once I went there, I saw like 3 ticks on my pant, and I was so scared at that time, because they can definitely cause you not so good things. You don't want them.
Okay.
So this place is called Acadia National Park, and this is one of my favorite spots to capture the night sky in Maine. So I live in Massachusetts, and it's about 4.5 hour drive to this national park. And again, me and my wife, we went there, we did drive there, and there's a whole experience that goes out with us. We usually go out there, we directly go and take the pictures, and then we drive up to the Cadillac Mountain 3-4 hours before the sunrise, crash there for a couple of hours, get up and see the sunlight. That's the mountain where you see the first light on the East Coast, on the US side, basically, in certain time. So that's a very beautiful but very crowded. So we spent some time here. It's beautiful to hear these waves crashing on these rocks. This place is called Boulder Beach, and took a very long exposure to get that crashing wave effect in this picture. And then again, I took some shorter exposures for this guy. I had participated in one of the contests in the US, which is for national parks, and this image got me the grand prize. And my image was printed on the National Park Pass for 1 year, which is which is bought by almost 500,000 people, even more, whoever visit the national parks and they go. So that was a big thing for me when this particular pic got selected as such. A lot of experience, a lot of memories that go on with this image, creating this image. But again, I was really lucky that it got appreciated in that way as well.
So whenever you go to these, let's say this particular image and composition, so did you do scouting before, and were you aware that what kind of research that went into choosing this particular spot for the Milky Way, and were you aware that the Milky Way is going to rise from this particular place and the strategic position? So can you share all those things?
Yeah, so I do a lot of planning for my Milky Way images. Whenever I'm visiting these parks, right, as I said, I've been to these parks a lot of times, and then during the daytime, I use the app to find out where the Milky Way will exactly rise. And there's a very small hike to go there. It's not easy thing to find in the night. If you don't know, you'll not be able to find this place. But if you have been there during the daytime, you know where you have to go to this particular place. So there is no easy access as such, or you cannot just park outside and go in there. You have to find the way. In the dark, it gets difficult. So yes, I go in the daytime. I try to find specific locations at what time of the year the Milky Way would be rising, because I have some pictures where the Milky Way is a little up in this on the right hand side, but it doesn't work well with the composition. So I wanted this composition where the Milky Way is kind of rising, where these rocks are, big rocks are ending and the sea is meeting. From there, the Milky Way is rising. Whenever there is some atmosphere in the night sky, some haze, I really like it to the extent that it kind of creates a haziness in the stars. It makes them glow a little more, makes them a little bigger than what they actually are. You can also, a lot of people also use some filters to achieve that, but I don't use such filters. And whenever there is a little haziness, when the Milky Way is closer to the horizon, you kind of get those details out in the sky. And again, in this picture, I use multiple exposures for the foreground, and it was shot with Canon 6D, and I used multiple exposures for the sky as well, and put them together to create this night sky image.
All right, thank you.
So this is another place near me. So where I live, the previous places, 2 bars, I drive north, I go to White Mountains area where you have Sugar Hill, where you have different ponds, lakes, Crawford Notch, different places, beautiful places with mountains and tree lines. And if I go south, there's a place called Cape Cod. So this place is called Salt Pond. It's also a national park seashore, basically. So they have protected these places as well here. And during the earlier months, I usually go there around April time, May time. During the earlier months, you get the Milky Way, which is more towards the southeast. So you don't get the light pollution. From here, if you look south, there are cities of Eastham, Chatham, where there is so much of light that you lose the details in the Milky Way completely. So it is really important for me, and that's why I plan these trips accordingly. I know which month I have to go where I can see the Milky Way to the fullest details, and which month I should definitely avoid going into some places. That's what I've done while living in the East Coast, because I'm not traveling that much for work right now. So whatever chance I get it here. So basically, whenever it's a clear night, short notice, I just pack my camera bag and make it ready, and I just go out there and take the pictures. Some atmosphere in the water that kind of creates some haze in there. I wish it had more fog than this, but I didn't want to create it in prose. I just kept it the way I captured this particular image. Again, this was also part of one of the calendars that National Parks has.
Manish, what lens you used here?
24 mm Rokinon.
Okay, yeah, 24 mm, because this Milky Way looks very close. The size of the Milky Way is much bigger than wide angle.
Yeah. 14 mm. You get more of the details with 24. 24 mm is my favorite lens for astro photography. You get a lot of details. You had a lot of options to even post-process those details. With 14 mm, I don't get a lot of details. It's a beautiful lens as well. I mean, you get a beautiful wide angle photography. Even this is wide angle, but not like 14 mm. I don't shoot beyond 24 mm. 24 mm is the max I go right now with my Astro.
But in 24 mm, you have to reduce the exposure also. Cannot
Yes.
do more than 20 seconds or something.
Yeah, actually, I don't even go 20 seconds because I follow the NPF rule, which for 24 mm,
I think it's 15.
About 8 seconds or something. It's almost half of the 400 rule.
Okay.
So I don't shoot more than 8 seconds for my 24 shots. Now I am looking for a better lens, and looking on it has some issues because it's a cheap lens, but it does a job to the certain extent, and I can post process it.
But what is the kind of ISO that goes at 8 seconds?
I take my shots at 10,000 ISO, 8,000, 10,000, 12,800, depending on what kind of light I have. So I usually shoot that, and that is the reason I do stacking of images, because I don't want noise in my night sky, and it makes a significant difference. It completely removes the noise and makes the pictures even good enough for prints. So,
What f-stop you are using?
I'm sorry?
What f-stop you are using?
Apps?
No, f-stop.
Aperture.
F-stop. So I foreground, most of the times I go with f1.4, and with the sky I go till f2 because it's f1.4 lens.
Okay.
So I stop down a little. I don't mostly shoot at 1.4 the sky because its performance is not that great with f1.4.
Okay. Cool. Nice.
Thanks. So this is one of my recent shots that I took in the COVID-19 situation. Basically, it's a place called Crawford Notch, and you have these scenic rails that go through here. Basically, from summer to fall, winter they shut down, and there are no trains during the night. There are trains only during the daytime. Those are scenic trains. And when I reached there, I first stopped at a depot. I recently put a picture of the depot as well, Crawford Depot, which is like a train station, and where you can see the Milky Way as well, pretty dark. But you have some disturbance from the vending machine that is kept there, which is spilling the light. You have vehicles approaching, some construction. But I made use of that image. I should have shared that image as well, but I didn't put it here. So after completing that shot, I went out there. I've seen in my apps that at the most I have to take the picture here from around 12:20 to 1. That's where I could see the Milky Way. Actually, 12:20 was the perfect time, and I wanted a different composition at this place. But when I went there, there were 3 people with chairs sitting on the track, completely blocking, and they were there from quite some time, taking the pictures over there. And I didn't feel like while talking to them that they were going to move and allow me to take the picture of the composition I wanted to take at that particular time. So I politely asked them. They said, we are going to stay here till long. We are going to stay here till 1:20. And I knew till 1:20 the Milky Way will be out of this particular frame. So I said, I will probably walk down ahead of you, and then I'll try to keep the light to minimum. They were okay with that. I don't have to ask them. It's not their property, but I still, because they are being polite and asking them because they were taking pictures and they were there before me. So went ahead and walked on the tracks. By the time my eyes have adjusted and I could see it. So I didn't turn on my lights at all, and I simply walked on the tracks in the night without my lights on. I went ahead from this place. I went to where you see the greens take turns and took a picture there with multiple exposures. And then I came back around the same time, 12:20. By around 12:40 or 12:45, they were done with most of their shots. So I asked them again, and they said, yeah, you can take the pictures from the side. So I took this composition. I wanted from the center that the train track is going ahead and going towards the Milky Way. But when I moved left, I could still see the Milky Way core just going on the trees. So I took this composition instead, and I processed it. It was a difficult process for me because I couldn't light paint. I use sometimes light paint to do focus. So I couldn't do a lot of focus because I'm taking multiple exposures. I took 5 images of 2 minutes each for the foreground because there's no light as such, and then put them together to reduce the noise. I couldn't do that as a trial basis. So I have to try it out with the light to see where things will work out in this image. But this was, fortunately, it turned out okay. And then I was able to capture it and showcase it with this composition as well. And this is my recent image, and most recent, not exactly most recent. I actually did one more trip after this. But this is last week I took this image. Actually this week, earlier this week, I took this image. This is a place called Coffin Pond. It's in Sugar Hill again. It's a different place. Not very known to a lot of photographers. One of my friend, he went there, he shared the location with me, and he had a horizontal frame here. So I basically told him that I'm gonna shoot a vertical and share from this place so that it doesn't kind of look the same. I also have a horizontal, but I keep it for later right now. And it was a perfect evening. Initially started out as cloudy, but then later it basically became absolutely clear. And this is like a mirror. This is a lake which is so still, pond which is so still, that you can see the whole sky being reflected down in the pond with your naked eye once your eyes are adjusted there. There are people, someone spoke to me about this image. They bought a print for this image because they live very close by after I posted this. And I was literally telling them that you are so lucky to just step out of your home and see a place like this, where you have fall colors during the fall, you have Milky Way during the whole season, and this pond is like you can make a whole time lapse of Milky Way rising from southeast going towards the south. This is more towards the south where you see it right now, and within a span of 3 to 4 hours, and all you could hear is those frogs making noises in the night, loud noises, some angry frogs as well. And some fish all of a sudden jumping out of the water sometimes and making that splash. So I was a little worried if there is a bear, because it's a bear country. Even the Sugar Hill, the Lupin picture, there are bears, which we have seen there. Fortunately, not encountered one during the night photos. I couldn't include that in foreground. I have to leave the shot anyways. So I was a little skeptical that what that sound is, but then it turned out all okay later. I could see that there was nothing else after coming in from that side. But one of the experiences, recent experiences, and one of the best places I saw. So you don't need big mountains. You don't need anything else. It's just, for me, the stars and the reflection in the pond with the fog rolling in that kind of made this image special to me.
Manish, in all your astro images, your whole Milky Way part, the whole sky part basically is very bright. Any reason behind that?
No, just my style, basically. The way I process my images. There are, as I'm using 24mm with high ISO, I anyways capture a lot of details and a lot of light in those parts. So it's easier for me basically to process it in that particular way. But I try to keep it clean. Basically, I have a few months back, I learned about a technique called star reduction as well. And I'm planning to, I applied it in this as well a little, but not to much extent. But later in my future pictures, I probably will apply that technique as well, which kind of reduces the brightness of the stars, and that keeps the core brightened so that your eyes goes there, and it kind of gives you details. You can see those nebulas, you can see that gas line, and you get to see the shadow details is the dark house nebula, all those details, even that is getting reflected in the water, that particular nebula. So that's my style of processing. Most of my images are mostly where you see the core as bright and colorful.
Yeah, that's what I saw on all the images actually.
Manish, did you track this or was this?
No, I didn't. I didn't track this as well. I used longer exposure for the mountain line and the greens you see, as well as fog. I used a shorter exposure for sky and the front trees you see. So I didn't basically brighten the front trees because there is fog rolling in and it's kind of creating a real difference, distinguishment between what is your foreground, which object is in front and which is behind. So it kind of creates a layer in there. So I didn't do a longer exposure for the front trees, which I like them a little darker than compared to the overall scene. Also, coming to infrared. Yeah, infrared is something I usually take to kind of bring out a little creative side of me, to show what I would like the world to look like, how the colors, how the softness in these pictures. I keep them soft, I keep them colorful, keep them bright. So after converting my camera to full spectrum, I converted my camera to full spectrum, my 60, so I could use it for both astro and infrared photography. So I use on-camera sensors, on-sensor filters to do the night photography, to capture the colors of the nebula and the sky. And I use on-lens filter to capture the infrared part of it. This particular image is shot at 590 nm filter, with a 590 nm filter. So that allows you a lot of visible light to enter with the infrared light. So whenever you have that, you get that softness in your image, as well as you get bright colors. So you get two colors. You basically get reds and blues in that case. And I usually swipe the channels. So my sky is red usually, and my foreground is bluish. So I swipe the channel to make the sky blue and the foreground the reddish color. Then I post-process them, mostly use color balance, selective color, HSL slider to bring out the colors I want to see in the foliage or in the sky and how it would look like. So usually the reason for bringing in infrared into my style of photography was because at the time I was not doing, basically doing aerial. I was doing landscape photography, like I'll go out in golden hour. If sky is clear, I would do astrophotography, but I didn't have much to do during the daytime in my trips because that light is not suitable. But apparently that is a perfect light for infrared photography. So you get all the beautiful details in there on a sunny day. This was shot on a sunny day with the moon almost overhead, basically, and I could capture that contrast and the softness and color very easily and beautifully through infrared. And it's about taste. A lot of people may say that infrared is not real, but it is, for me, it is also a spectrum of light that is available, and beyond that, it is up to me how I want to showcase my infrared work. I call them dreamscapes. Most of my images, I feel that they are like dreamland series. I put it like that. I put yellow, pink, orange, green. I try to create different colors in my images and try to put them. This is one of the first images I took when I went to a place called Palouse. It's in Washington State. And after taking those morning shots, I went to the butte. I took that beautiful rolling hill shot. And what to do during the daytime is what my infrared comes handy, and go out and take those pictures.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
Thanks. So this is
like you had mentioned that you had changed your camera to shoot all the spectrums, right?
yes.
Yeah. So could you while you explain this thought and the thoughts ahead, probably if you could tell us something.
So all these cameras, right? They have IR UV blocking filter. So if I apply a filter on top of my camera, which is unconverted, and I take a shot of infrared, then I'll get long exposures, because your front side on the top of the lens is trying to reduce the noise, the visible spectrum, and only allowing the infrared spectrum to come in. And then again, you have a IR UV blocking filter, which is trying to block that. So you don't get these colors, you get a long exposure, and they don't look nearly as good as that. So I thought of doing post-processing, but then for me, infrared I like, because one of the reasons I like is because I don't have to use a tripod with it. It's fast, you can use a faster shutter speed. During the daytime you use, or even in the evening time, you can shoot it handheld, you can get down. What I like about these things is that it gives me flexibility without a use of tripod to compose the way I want to compose, to see the way I want to see and showcase. So getting out of this image is just getting out of the car from the field and just taking this pictures. I kind of like this tilted fence going in there. And then I process it such a way that usually, as I told, that infrared has I get two images, then I process in such a way to bring out the pink in the trees, which appears like a cherry blossom pink to me. And that's what I was trying to achieve. Coming back to your question about that full spectrum part, I had an option to go in with a specific wavelength, to convert my camera to that specific wavelength, so that I don't have to use external filters, or use a full spectrum. So I went with full spectrum. What they do is they remove that IR UV blocking filter, and they replace it with a clear filter on the sensor itself. They do it. It's important to see the size of the filter they put in, because that kind of changes your focus. Infrared is a little difficult to focus. So basically, I see the live view to focus. It's important that your camera has a live view. Viewfinder, you try to focus, you'll see that in focus, but when you take out, it will be all blurred out, because the focus is a little different than what this thing. For some reason, the live view for me works perfect, and I do that. It's a little expensive in the way that I have to buy specific wavelength filters for astro and infrared, but kind of the flexibility I get with it is that I have to carry one camera for astro and infrared. That's what I was trying to achieve with that. And that was my thought process in going with that conversion.
All right.
So this is pink. This is Yosemite. I call it the pink world. Basically, again, I said that I get two colors, blue and red. What I do with red and what I do with blue is basically up to, in this, the softness in the trees, as if there is a fog that has rolled in. What I like about infrared the most. During my trips, I make sure that I take one or two infrared pictures. This one I have processed in green as well, and a different color, so I can process the same image and make them look completely different with the change of the colors I'm selecting. And this place is it's in Vermont. This is quite a famous farm. It's called Sleepy Hollow Farm, and it's quite famous for fall colors. I have multiple pictures from here from fall colors, because all these trees during the fall season, autumn season, they shed and they cover this road inside. It's a private property, so you can stand outside the door and take the picture, but you cannot go in. So that's what you see in most of the images. but I haven't seen an infrared of this particular place. And I believe this was the first infrared picture I posted of this place, and basically got a lot of traction in Vermont as well. People looked up infrared. I converted my camera from live pixel, and they also have showcased some of my work on their website to promote people for the conversions. This is one of my favorite infrared pictures, if you ask me, with the kind of details I got and the color I got with this. This again, whenever I visit national parks, I try to create just simple looking pictures with simple composition. Don't worry about others. It's just a point and shoot for me. I go out there and shoot. Anything and everything looks beautiful in infrared to me. It's the way I see through infrared, and I imagine the images that would look like during that time. I imagine, and I try to shoot in that particular way. This is also sunny with harsh light. No other picture would have suited here. I like roads. I love to take road pictures. A lot of them. You'll see them in my aerial imagery as well. This is one of the images I have taken in Acadia National Park, where I kind of put the yellow color here to showcase the foliage that was getting converted during that particular time. So, any questions?
Yeah, I have kind of, when you compare your Astro and when you compare your infrared, both require a different level of post-processing. They are unlike, I'm not saying that the normal landscapes do not require that, but yes, here these two require. So what is the kind of effort that goes into processing your infrared images vis-a-vis your Astro?
So my infrared images, they don't take a lot of time for me. They're fairly quick. So I do some adjustments. I do a channel swap to start with. I apply, try to see if there are certain highlights, sometimes even if my histogram is not showing highlights, but there are images which will be completely blown out when I take out on my camera, and somehow I feel what is going on here. So I try to underexpose them so that I get those details from my infrared photos, which I faced earlier in issue. But rather than that, there's these sliders that I use, XSL slider. I use color balance sometimes and selective color to kind of bring out the color I want. Don't do a lot of processing specifically, because that's what I like about infrared. They are good to go images. Just a small basic adjustments that I don't process them in Lightroom because it messes up the infrared images, messes up the white balance. It makes them completely red. It doesn't understand that particular white balance because I use custom white balance for that specific process that I shoot for grass. I make the camera add that as custom white balance, make it that, okay, this grass is supposed to be white. And then I take it from there and make the camera believe. So I process it in Photoshop with these. So it's fairly quick. Astro, on the other hand, takes quite some time for me because I don't do blue R photos. So for me, taking long exposure is important, but it's also important for me during the Astro that I do it right on the field. And it is very challenging as such. I'm used to it now, but if you're going out there in the night for the first time, you probably will be overwhelmed seeing that I cannot see anything. I cannot do anything. How do I compose? What do I see? How do I take picture and all those things? So that part I have to be careful that I get it right in my frames so that I know that even if I have 18 pictures, and that's what I usually get for one shot, about 16 to 18 pictures, that I can create one image out of it, which can be printed, which can be displayed pretty clean, even though it is a night image. That's what I try to target in my recent processes. earlier my processes were fairly quicker, but then they didn't help that much to showcase how beautiful the night sky would be. They would be more contrasty and all those things, which basically I try to avoid. I try to bring out the softer details in the foreground as well as sharp stars. That's what I try to achieve. So a lot of time in astro, quite little time in infrared.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah.
Welcome. So coming to my aerial photography, I basically started my aerial photography 4 years back. So I've been moving around, right? I did landscape, I did astro, infrared, and then when I see there are a lot of people doing astro, then I thought to do something unique, something creative. From beginning I always wondered that how the birds would see. You always call a bird's eye view, but you never get to see that, how different things look from above. It's a completely different perspective, completely different world. So it's up to you, it's up to your creativity, how you compose what you see, how do you showcase your images when it comes to aerial. And that's the part I like about it, that a lot of my aerial photos, if I'm taking, there will be no similar looking picture. There will be a lot of places where people will go and take pictures, and there will be famous spots. But there are a lot of places as such which I try to find in my aerial photography using hours on Google Maps, or even at the location. I think that this might look interesting from the sky. Let's try it out. And sometimes it looks very good, sometimes it looks really bad. But it's worth a flight over there, and you get to see how the world looks. So it's another source for me to create something unique. Is why I moved into aerial photography.
Which drone do you use? Which drone?
So I started with Phantom 3 Pro, then I moved to Phantom 4 Pro, and I basically I'll come to one of the pictures where I'll basically tell the story about that, and then I moved to Mavic 2 Pro. So right now I'm using Mavic 2 Pro, but I also have Phantom 2 Pro. I have two lenses which I usually use. These are not the professional level expensive lenses, but they are consumer lenses, but they do the job good enough for me. And ease of carrying is what I like about Mavic 2 Pro. It's very easy to carry wherever you want to, and wherever you're going, you can have it handy to have a bird eye view of that particular place. Drone photography for me is something that I try to be responsible, show not to break the rules as such. I try to follow the rules that are available for drone within that particular country, and basically do not disturb people. A lot of people still find it very annoying to have a drone flying above them. And some people find it cool that, oh wow, there's a drone, I need to get that toy. For me, it's like a toy. I used to play a lot of video games, and this is kind of something similar to what I see growing up, that I can fly my drone, I can do something, I can take some amazing footages from above, which I don't share a lot. I should start sharing, and get some unique perspective through. So it's dual, right? I get the fun of flying the drone, as well as I get to see the world differently with the bird's eye view and capture unique compositions. So it's a win-win situation for me going into aerial photography.
Manish, have your drones been attacked by birds?
Yes.
Okay. Any stories to share?
I mean, that happened in Iceland specifically. So that guy really came and attacked my drone. Somehow it got saved. It didn't this thing, but I was more worried about that bird, because usually bird will come and they'll just stop near to that drone. They'll come. There are so many videos that I have birds that come and just stop and go a different way. So they are coming in my video and just going on the right side. It's amazing to watch that. And they find it, I don't know, as a different bird, something else that has come into their territory, and especially birds in Iceland, they're annoyed with it. So they come and attack most of the times. But I haven't crashed my drone through that. I have crashed my drone. I've crashed 2 of my drones. So one of my drone in Utah, I crashed after updating the software. So they bring in these firmware upgrades, and I did that, and I flew the drone, and somehow it became crazy and it went down without control, and it went down in a cliff, so I couldn't go down and take it as well. So that trip was gone. My photos were gone. Everything was gone with that. And then I reached out to the company. They sent me a new drone because it was not my fault.
Right.
And the second time I had a propeller in my Phantom 4 Pro drone. It was overhead. The drone was above me, about, you'll say, about 150, 200 feet maybe above me. And the propeller came off. Never happens. And the drone came down like crazy. I could see it coming. I somehow felt like I should go and catch it and save it. Then I decided not to. I don't want to hurt myself. And then it crashed in front of me right there and was broken into pieces. Again, that was my fall season. So fall season is the season in New England where I live is very beautiful. It's amazing with beautiful, bright, vibrant colors. The foliage on the tree is something that everyone should see and capture in this world. I call it a wonder, the wonder of nature, how these trees change color as if they're talking to each other. One changes, the other changes, and you'll find one batch of trees which are completely green, other batch of tree which is completely orange and red, and there is a mix sometimes like this, which kind of gives you the rainbow colors in them if you combine it with different earthy elements as well. So that part is what I like to do during the month of October. I usually take a break from work. Me and my wife, we travel down to New England, we travel to New Hampshire, Vermont, upstate New York. We have to go to Canada as well sometime. It has also beautiful colors around that area on the East Coast. So that's what we do. We travel, we see new places, and we capture these imagery. This place, this image is one of the first pictures I captured using a drone. There's a place called Kankamegas Highway, which now since last year they have restricted the drone usage there. They are not completely banned it, but you cannot fly within 0.25 miles of the road. So you have to hike back in and at a place, and you can fly. There are a lot of restrictions now in place with more and more people coming into aerial photography. A lot of places they are restricting. But at that time, there is only one U-turn out there. I took this picture in the peak colors. Luckily, I got the car as well as at the right spot in this. Basically, after that, I've seen many images of this particular place. But this is one of my first images, so I wanted to showcase that.
Okay.
Again, the roads, I'm in love with roads, especially the drives in the Northeast. This is in Vermont, a place called Smuggler's Notch. And they have this curve road over there, which basically it's difficult to drive in as well because it's kind of a one way and it's steep, very steep. So there are many cars there. And I had to wait so that the whole frame has only one car. I could have removed from the frame as well, the similar shot with 2 cars as well. And then basically, again, this type of photos doesn't require a lot of processing. These colors are bright enough, just the basic processing. It's just the composition that you create looking top down or looking, creating a panorama through aerial photos is what is important and how you want to showcase it. So this is from the same series of Kankamegas Highway with the fog rolling in. I did a time lapse at this particular one, call it hyper lapse. where the drone is moving and taking multiple pictures from the aerial and creating the rolling fog moving and the cars moving as well from aerial. It's pretty neat what you can do with a drone these days.
And this is with Phantom, or this was with the latest one that you have?
Phantom 4 Pro.
4 Pro.
My latest Iceland shots are with Mavic 2 Pro.
Okay.
This one and the previous one was from Phantom 4 Pro. This particular is taken at a lake called Chokurwa Lake in the White Mountains region. And during the season, a lot of people come out with kayaks. They take pictures. So I knew this guy, this kayaker was going in. He had a drone of himself, but he couldn't fly. He was thinking, what do I do? I asked him, can I take your picture while you're up there? And I'll share with you. So he agreed to it. And then I took a couple of pictures with him. This shot is where the sky is getting reflected in the water, dark sky above. I usually take my aerial photos mostly when it is cloudy. So that's the best thing I can do because I get details and everything. If it is harsh light, the shadows that you don't like, it takes away all the fun from there. So mostly if I'm doing a panorama, I prefer taking it during the morning or the evening hours. Otherwise, if it is a cloudy day, that's my drone day. I would love to take out pictures and see those clouds reflected in water and get the details out there. Even the ripples that created by the kayak are just amazing in this case.
Absolutely amazing.
So this is what I call a sky lake, because the whole sky as is getting reflected in this lake for me. This was shot in Vermont. Again, I spent a lot of time for my aerial photos trying to create something unique. I haven't seen any other photo with this particular lake like this with this colors, because that particular location, it's in Vermont, and this is between mountains. So you have two mountains on side of it, and there is this lake between the mountains, or you can call it hills because they're not big mountains over here, and filled with foliage. So if I was flying from the ground, which was quite away, my drone would have easily gone above 400 feet. So I had to hike for this particular image. I had to hike closer to that mountain so I can fly from there. So then my height of flying takeoff is added, and it doesn't restrict me to basically with that particular limit, and I could take this picture. This was again very well planned. Luckily, I got good weather. The foliage was at peak. It's tricky with the foliage. I follow a lot of trackers which give you where it is peaking. There are a lot of people who travel across New England and show reports with pictures, but they are just documenting. That doesn't give you an idea of where it might be peaking. And it was just perfect conditions with cloudy weather, color at its best for me to capture this. And this image is very special, same kayaker image, split image I call. It's very special in a way that this was showcased at Smithsonian Nature Museum for 1 year. It was exhibited there. And this is the best achievement for me so far, that one of my images is showcased and exhibited in Smithsonian Museum. This was that one image which I went there. Basically there was a ceremony over there with other photographers as well. Some experience that I'll never forget. So these unique kind of images that I try to create, that particular one, it lets you think about how you want to compose a particular image. What do you want to shoot? You just want to shoot kayaker, you want to include the tree line. How do you want to split the frame? You have the sky reflected, clouds reflected in the water as well. How you want to use that, as well as the motion created with the ripples of the kayak. It's just the mind. It's just that you have to think very quickly in aerial photography, because that moment is gone. You don't see it. If it is just the tree line you're capturing, it will still be there. You'd have enough time. But if it is something that you're capturing that is moving, you don't have a lot of time to take those pictures. So what you do, what in that particular moment, how you capture, it's really important for aerial photography.
It's stunning. I think I have one question that you said that these were exhibited as well. So do you really get this kind of details to get it printed large size also, the drone images?
Yeah, actually this one did. I was amazed to see, I was surprised when I went there, they printed it. And I also have other prints, because this is around 20 megapixel camera with Phantom 4 Pro. So initially Phantom 3 Pro was 12 megapixel and not much of the details. But 4 Pro and Mavic 2 Pro are both around 20 megapixel and with good dynamic range. So you can definitely print them the way you want to.
All right.
So new drones provide you that flexibility. Initially drones, no. They were crappy pictures. They were good for social media, but not otherwise. Again, this is one of my favorite places in Vermont. It's where we go out there, we hike there sometimes, and one of my favorite places to fly a drone. I go there every year to take pictures here with this particular lake in mind. Try to find new places all the time, new locations, something with the heart shape in me. I always try to find in a lake and try to capture it. So this is one of the other photos from there. Coming to Iceland, drone in Iceland for me are kind of synonymous that has happened, because I have found a completely different style or completely new images that I didn't see before in Iceland. The land just surprises me with what you can see from above. The color of the grass in this image, the color of the glacier water, the sediments mixed with when the glacier is melting, all the rocks that are there, they are crushed, they become sediments, get mixed with the water when it melts and gives them color, the turquoise color, different colors. It's just amazing to see what all these colors that you can capture. This particular image was, we have a contest called Sony WPA where I participated with this image, and this was exhibited there. There were 2 awards that were given to me. One was basically the honorable mention in the open category. The other one was the national award that they sent out to me that they'll give me, but they had a condition over there that it has to be given to a place where you are a citizen and the place where you are residing. So I have a tricky situation. I'm a citizen of India and a permanent resident of US. So it's in due process that I become a citizen here, but I cannot get a national award for India then after realizing going to paperwork, and I cannot get it for US because I am not a citizen here but residing. So they have a loophole in this particular contest. So they had to leave that particular award, as well as with Sony being working with people, Sony India being working with people, you have to be residing in India so that they can work with you. There was a contract to work with them for a year, but I am living in US, Sony India cannot work. So that is the reason. But still, nevertheless, it remains special that it was exhibited over there. And they also did an article as a consolation prize after that they couldn't give the national award because of that stupid limitation. So this is Iceland again. And this is a panorama shot, which I took in Highlands. And I recently started taking a lot of panoramas with my drone. So I try to capture in this image, I try to capture the start of the flow of the water and how it becomes the water flow and basically moves ahead. It was a dull day, but when we reached here, it started to rain. So we would wait it out. We basically waited out behind a big rock there in that particular place for 2 hours, me and my wife. We were having some snacks, we were waiting it out so that the rain stopped somehow and I could take some pictures. the rain shot, the light was amazing after the rain. I was just surprised. I was like, wow, this is something that show that God has rewarded probably just for waiting for that 2 hours in this case. Love this waterfall, love this place. Reaching here requires to cross certain rivers. So this time we did a camper van, 4x4 camper van, and went across highlands and captured the beauty of highlands. That was something new. Did it in last July 2019.
Okay.
Again, this is a top down of a river delta, and this is just water flowing. It's nothing else. The mix of water and the kind of abstract and the pattern it creates, just amazing to see from above, that all these things that you cannot even realize while looking from ground that something of this pattern might exist in nature. Any questions so far for me? I know probably I haven't taken a look at the time. Probably.
So Manish, I have a question. I have a question. Maybe this will help a lot of other people. I have resisted buying a drone for last 4 years now because I feel that this will distract me from my landscape photography, which I really love. Have you felt that kind of a distraction after you've become really serious about your drone photography?
In a way, I mean, it really depends upon what you want to do. What is the best? What do you want to achieve through your photography?
Yeah.
For me, it's always been something creating unique, something new, something creative, which helps me. I mean, I definitely can do that with landscape photography, and so can million other people as well. But this gives me a little unique point of view to things, unique compositions, which will be only mine for quite a long time. And a lot of them will be mine.
But do you agree that you cannot do both? You can. I mean, it's impossible.
I do both.
Would you agree with that?
No, I do both.
You do both.
I do landscapes as well. It has reduced. I'll agree to that. Because sometimes it is easier for me to fly my drone and capture it rather than set up the tripod and all those things. But there are certain things that, for example, Astro I cannot do with drone. Landscapes, sunrises, sunsets, I still take those compositions, still take those pictures, as well as fly my drone to capture. So I'm doing both the things at the same time.
Okay.
That is kind of incredible, because I also had the similar kind of question to ask. But anyways, that is incredible, because I wanted to ask this, that how do you balance it out? But yeah, so you've already answered that. It's amazing.
You know what you can do? You can set up your tripod, you can wait for your camera, and in the same spot you can fly your drone and see around what else lies in the surrounding. That's what I do most of the times. And there are some places like roads and all, you don't want to capture it with your camera standing in the middle of on the road. That's where the drone comes handy to see those views for me. Sorry.
We have to step out of our comfort zone. This is what we have to do. We all of us can benefit from that.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful. Especially if you guys go out to places like Norway, to Iceland, to other countries. Yeah. They are amazing. They're very good for drone photography. And the only thing I say, people, is follow the rules. Don't bother others. Be respectful, and people will respect your work as well. That's one thing that I see, because in India, even there were drones flying, not even allowed. I used to see a lot of drone photos taken as if they were taken in from a small plane. They don't fly low, they fly high. So no one cares about the rules. Now it's getting strict, and it's good that these are rules. And because of such things, the rules are becoming more strict. And that's what I tell people, that you have a responsibility that you follow these rules. Just leave a shot if it is not allowed to fly there. I mean, in Iceland as well, initially I took some glacier shots. And then last year, they were not allowed. There was a board written there that it's not allowed to fly a drone here. So I didn't fly there. That's how things are changing. More and more people that break the rules, it becomes difficult for remaining. So people have to understand, if you want drone photography to be beneficial for everyone, to be enjoyable, then you have to follow the rules. Otherwise, there will be only few places limited where you can fly the drone.
Right, right.
And for me, I have never flew my drone from my apartment. People live there. I don't want to bother anyone. That's the first place people will fly to see what's ahead of my home or where I live. In the apartment. I've never done that. I always go to a secluded place, a wilderness area, not Essex wilderness, which is not allowed, but a place where you can fly the drone. You use the apps to see if it is a red zone or not. These days, drone wouldn't even allow you to fly, and if it is a red zone. So coming back to this picture, I take a lot of selfie images with drone. I call it droney. So it's been a series of images. Me and my wife, we took it one at the snow with an umbrella in the snow time. That was quite an image at that time. Then I took a drone image at Westerhorn, standing on those sand dunes kind of thing that you have. That image is also special to me. And this is one of the latest addition to my drone images at this waterfall. And amazingly, I had the whole waterfall to myself. Basically, me and my wife, we were there, and no one else. So I had my camera, a tripod set up. I did my photography here. I flew my drone here. I took some videos here. So everything done, and then we went to the camper van, had cooked our dinner, and slept there as well. So it was amazing. And these kind of things that I find that are unique to me, that I can see, I can find, I can capture, that I won't see with anyone else. These small water bodies with colors. Iceland amazes me that you can have different colors in water bodies that are just close to each other. And they're forming shapes. You have a heart shape, you have a fish shape, you have a bunny, you have a little child. There are different shapes that you can find in these if you actually look into these images. So it just amazes me that this is nature's art, right? I'm just trying to capture it. I haven't created it. I haven't done anything. It's just created by nature, which we couldn't see otherwise. I'm just trying to showcase that this also exists.
Right.
Again, in this image, I'm trying to tell a story of the life of the glacier, that from the glacier on the right, top right, with the weather, with the climate change, the melting that happens, it's just receding and the water is flowing, and how it flows and it meets the sea. So this is kind of a story that I try to capture with my drone images. I don't necessarily fly them very high and look at top down all the time. Sometimes it is necessary. But sometimes I take panorama shots, which are like landscape shots where you have a foreground, middle ground, background, telling you a story, what is happening in that particular image, which you can capture through panoramas from the drone as well.
Fantastic.
Again, one of my favorite shots, which was accidental, flew my drone here and I saw a small river, comparatively very small, heading, and I was blown away with these patterns this particular river had. I took a top-down shot of this. I basically took a vertical shot. I took a horizontal landscape abstract shot. Did a lot of photography here. And fortunately, the weather was good. I could see my drone because I was flying from the road and I could take it away and I could see the tiny dot that is my drone over there taking the picture. It's really important that you see the drone where it is going at that particular point. And one of my favorite finds, I would say, this particular river in this where I least expected it. I almost lost hopes that I'll find a good river pattern there. But Iceland always amazes, surprises me when I have less hope. This is the similar river with the pattern looking top down in that the kind of structure the river has flowing. This is just water flowing, with those deltas. And it kind of looks surreal that this is what we see down, and from up it looks like this. It's just a different world.
Crazy, yeah, beautiful world.
And this shot is also close to me. This is a mix of two rivers. So just before the river mixes, glacial river mixes into the sea, there is a river. It would be kind of a thermal water or something of that sort, which is yellow in color. It kind of mixes with blue color, and it forms a pattern which is like a python, like an anaconda or a snake going in with that pattern. That's what I saw in this image. I took this image in winter. At that point, I didn't get these colors, and at that point, this river, it met directly into the sea instead of going to the right. And I went in the summer, I saw this wouldn't come in my frame because the river is meeting way beyond, later on the right side, into the sea. How do I get it? The kind of image I had in mind from winter, which I waited, was gone because the landscape keeps changing here. And the yellow has become more prominent. It's quite more in that case when I saw it in summer. So I kind of took a panorama to showcase this in the way I captured the sea part on the side, the python-like looking river, which is a mixture of two rivers, as well as the green elements, which I couldn't get away with at that point. And I took this panorama on the aerial side. This will remain close to me, this particular image, because what I had to improvise at that time while I was flying the drone.
Mm-hmm.
So this is an image from Iceland. I just wanted to show with this image and this particular image taken at the same spot at two different seasons of how things differ in Iceland when the season changes. So you still have the riverbed, which is dried. You have a river which is flowing. You have greenery, this colorful river. And after a storm, this time, I could see that the snow had accumulated on that particular riverbed and formed a pattern, which looked amazing to me from above.
Right.
Not the perfect conditions I would have for this with the clouds and all those things for the previous shot, but still the flow of river, the panorama that shows a completely different, that Iceland is beautiful in whichever season you go. It has a different landscape. A lot of people ask me, what do you do? Keep going to the same place. What do you find new? This is what I find new. Every season is different in Iceland or different places with the weather conditions.
Yeah.
Even those mountains are the same, but everything else in the picture changes completely.
Right.
And this is one of the glacier shots from Iceland, which I decided that I'll create as monochrome with the kind of drama and the kind of things that were going on in the clouds near the glacier. And I wanted to show the landscape part of my photography through aerial photography. So I didn't do a top-down in this case. And I went closer to the glacier so that you have a bigger aspect element in the front, which kind of moves and becomes smaller. And then you have a bigger mountain, which kind of tells you the story with the leading lines. And the transition here is basically from bigger to smaller, and with the leading lines that showcase you. So you can achieve your landscape photography, what you've been doing with drone photography as well. If it's just the matter of learning how to fly a drone and be careful with it and use it creatively. And this is another image, which probably I would never see it again, because this was taken this February. I went out to Germany for my work, and while coming back, I did a stopover in Iceland. And the day I reached, it was the day after the storm. It was really difficult to drive because with winds blowing like hurricane speed wind. Was really difficult, and we had to drive in the night so that we reach at places where we can take the morning photos. It was a 2-3 day trip, basically. So after that storm, I saw there are interesting patterns by the side of the road, and when I flew my drone, I was blown away with these patterns, which I've never seen. This you can see in a river, but this is all snow, which is stuck in the riverbed after the wind has blown the other snow from others. So either it is completely white, or it is completely dark, but you never get these patterns of river. And I was lucky that the timing of it, which probably I'll never see it again. So this image will remain unique to me the composition and the kind of lifeline, the veins that this forms and heads you towards the glacier and shows you what lies behind.
Beautiful, yeah.
And this is my last image. So I know I've taken a lot of time right now.
This is beautiful.
Yeah.
It's like an eye.
Yeah, this is what I call the dragon eye. This is the title I gave when I created. I see this image. This is again not a planned image. This is what do you call a hot water pool in Highlands, and I didn't plan to take this shot. But when I saw and took this shot, I'm very close to this. This is a very small pool. I'm very close to it. I'm not that high. So you see the pattern around that with all those details, how this pool has been formed, basically, with all the heat coming out of it, the water coming out of it and flowing through it. And the opening with this color appeared to me like a eye. And I remembered the dragon, basically, I call it dragon eye. With Game of Thrones going on, exactly, I remembered the dragon in Game of Thrones and the eye that they have shown as a close-up. And I thought, this is it. I found it in nature, and I was able to capture it as well. Again, this image was shared and featured on National Geographic as well. And it will remain close to me, and I haven't seen another picture of this space. So this is from my side.
Incredible.
It's incredible work. It's really incredible. I think.
Yeah, nice images.
Thank you so much, guys.
Yeah, it was wonderful, and so it was really enthralling to see, because it's quite a varied work that you have, and so from normal landscapes to astro to infrared, and I've seen that personally. I've also seen your phases when you are shifting from one to another, and so my question to you is that do you have you stopped doing infrared now? So when you move from one thing to another, right now you're too much into the aerial. So we get to see very less of your the other work, especially normal landscapes, and infrared has, I think I have not seen that from quite a long time now. So how do you go through these? Do they intermingle, or you go one by one and experiment and then move on to something new?
So when I plan out my trips are not that frequent that used to be. So when I plan out my trips, I had limited time during those trips. So initially during daytime, I used to do infrared, but I really like foliage in infrared. Iceland doesn't have that much of foliage when I go there. So I knowingly made this decision that I'll leave my infrared camera behind, and I will focus on landscapes and aerial photography when it comes to Iceland. I've been traveling to Iceland quite a lot, and that was the reason behind it. Last infrared shot I took was in last summer. So this summer, I'm planning to take my infrared shot. My camera, which is my full spectrum camera, basically had some issues, so I've sent it for repair. And with COVID, it is stuck there for around a month now. So I've not been able to use it. But I plan to do infrared photography because I do it in summer. The foliage is beautiful in summer, and I get dreamy landscapes in summer. So most of my images on infrared, you'll find it taken in summertime. One thing that I want to do is I want to go to Death Valley again. I want to shoot Death Valley in infrared, black and white with those sand dunes. That is what I want to do when I travel down there. But once this COVID situation opens up, I'm planning to make it a habit that I don't just leave these things on the side like I did with Astro. I didn't take any photos from 1.5 years. With this COVID, I've been traveling like crazy every other day, driving 5 hours in the night, taking pictures, coming back and sleeping during the daytime. So it takes a toll. But again, now I have more time because of the COVID situation. And then I'm trying to utilize and make sure that I keep infrared active and alive in my life as well.
Good one. Anybody has any questions, guys? We're closing to 3 hours, and it's been amazing. It was very engrossing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope no one slept during the time.
No, no.
Not at all.
Well, photography at least doesn't let you sleep. That is certain. That is certain. So there is one question that has been there that I think very interesting by Naveen Vishwanath. Is there something you always ask to yourself or think just before capturing the photo? What goes into your mind? And
So I have this habit of not rushing into things when I'm going and taking the picture. So one of the things that I have learned, I've learned from my experience, is that when I'm going to any place, I want to go there before I want to take pictures. So I take in what is there, what are the elements out there in any kind of photography I do, and how I want to use these elements to showcase my style of photography, to showcase the landscape, the beauty of nature. I try to get very low to the ground, not use a tripod, try to create different compositions and see in my live view how it looks, and then go about deciding what I want to capture. And definitely with Astro, there is a lot of, I do different kinds, so different mindset always. I try to not mix them up. But in Astro, you have to plan definitely. You need to know where you're going. You need to know your surroundings, because it's for your own safety as well, and for safety of others. It's beneficial that you know your surroundings. It's better if you've been to that place in the daytime and you have. I improvise in that location after reaching there. It takes time. Sometimes you don't have that much time. Sometimes I spend the whole night in one place, so I have time. I can do that. So this is my thought process, different for different kind of photography. But overall, I take time to basically think it out, what I want to achieve.
all right, very interesting. And now, when you say that you also do landscape and aerial together, and you manage to do that, shifting from one vision to another, is it easy? Are you now getting used to that, or you still kind of take time to switch from one thing to another, because it's a different visualization altogether?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, more of the landscape mindscape has been starting to come into my aerial photos now. So it's kind of that mindscape has not changed. I've started to take more and more of panoramas, which are vertical panoramas showing the landscape features through aerial photography, not definitely looking down. But yeah, top down, I try to find certain patterns when I am using my camera as well in nature, with tree lines or with small objects, that I can capture it like an aerial top-down approach. So both go side by side. I've never faced a difficulty switching from one to another, if you ask me. Never realized that could be a problem.
All right, that's very interesting. So what next now? So you've done landscapes, you've done infrared, you do astro, and you have aerial. Underwater?
I learned swimming for that. That's also. I want to do a lot of things. I want to buy a kayak. I want to do kayaking and take my drone videos to that. I want to do deep sky. I want to move in, do little deep sky that I can do with a longer lens instead of telescope, and invest in a good tracker and move into that side of it as well. So these are the things that I kind of plan. But other things that I've learned are going to stay. They're not going anywhere. Even I may switch from one thing to another, but photography remains for me.
That's wonderful. So one last question that I've had in my mind since the very beginning of this talk. And you got married, and I have seen people leave photography after marriage. I've seen that. I'm witness to that. So was her agreeing to your photography was easy, mutual, or you had to resist or somehow force your way, at least initially, to convince her that, okay, now we'll make this a holiday for you as well, and while I'll continue to pursuing my photography?
So I've been lucky in that way, that she likes to travel as well, and she likes nature as much as I do. And she's always up with new suggestions on how I should take the pictures as well when I'm taking the pictures. So that way I've been lucky. I used to be a consultant, and I sooner or later, that kind of life, I love traveling and do this and that. I did it for 1 year after the marriage as well, and soon realized that that's not going to work out, because you have to give time in all aspects of your life. All aspects of your life are important. Your family is important, very important, comes on the top. And then I take it from there. And then I try to find places around here where I can go out and take pictures, more into area, more into astro, doing more work on that side, which doesn't require week-long trips to go out and do things like that, which we can do together whenever we go out. Like we do this fall color thing together all the time. That's our thing, that we have to go out. We do Iceland together. That's somewhere we want to settle down the line if possible. So that way I've been lucky, and I have definitely changed my style and my photography as well, for considering how your life changes once you move on with your life.
So when are you bringing her into photography as well then?
She always takes pictures. Her cell phone with her all the time.
Fantastic. Anybody wants to ask any questions? Otherwise, we can wind up. We are already 3 hours now into this.
All good.
So
Thank you.
yeah, thank you, Manish. It was quite a session, and I think I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I think what stood apart in today's session was the passion with which you do each different sub genres of landscape photography, and enjoy in every aspect of it, and so easily you switch between one another and still continue to really keep the quality intact. And I think that is what stands out. And your kind of award-winning streak had to be broken by the Nat Geo having to stop that website. Otherwise, you would have continued to do that. And that is amazing. And thank you so much again. And I think continue inspiring us. Continue to explore new avenues within landscape photography.
Thank you so much, Jesse and everyone. It was an honor and pleasure talking to you all. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Let me just take
Bye-bye.
one screenshot. So guys, thumbs up. Yeah. Just a minute. Yeah. Absolutely good.
All right.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.